Thomas had collected a bush on his travels. He peered into the room through its leaves. He couldn't speak. "You miserable engine," she scolded. "Just look what you've done to our breakfast. Now I shall have to cook some more."
Let's be honest. We all wish everyone else would do their Thomas models like Bachmann does their G-scales. In terms of detail alone, he's probably one of the best on the market, and he better be with that hefty price tag he's got on him. And it's normally the price of these larger models that keeps people away from customizing them, understandably worried that they'd mess it up and end up $200 in the hole. But alas, there was a time I was a young stupid boy, and in being young and playing with my G-scale Thomas model like it was a toy, I ended up messing it up pretty dang well. However, I didn't want him to stay in the sorry state that he was in, and after watching some classic Thomas episodes, namely Thomas Comes to Breakfast, I was inspired to do something more with him. In the episode, Thomas is convinced that he can go on without his crew, and after a cleaner messes with his controls accidentally, he goes down the line from his shed only to crash into the Signal Master's house. Maybe not the best story arc we ever got, but you know what, it's a classic, so shut up. Donald and Douglas end up pulling Thomas out of the house, and he's then sent off for repairs. I wanted to model and try to replicate Thomas once he had been pulled out of the house as closely as I could to the show, of course taking some creative liberties. Starting with his footplate, Thomas was already missing a lamp iron and had a good amount of paint under his face that was missing. Not a whole lot needed to be done besides bending one buffer down and hiding the paint loss and missing parts as much as I could. After bending his right buffer like it was seen in the show, I used clump foliage and some spare large wood pieces that I painted to detail his front damage. I took off his front coupler and, using sticks from the garden, turned the clump into more of a bush. I also added a large branch across Thomas's buffer beam to replicate the one that was shown here. Using actual makeup that I had to get from my wife that was secured with matte clear, I was able to blush Thomas's cheeks up and give him that proper embarrassed look. He's very clearly still smiling, but it's the thought that counts. After completing Thomas's front detail-wise, I decided I would decorate the rest of them to match, thus cashing in on that creative liberty that I was talking about earlier. I used some medium ballast to replicate that of fallen plaster on his sides and front. I repeated this process in front of Thomas's funnel, and using the spare sticks, clump foliage, and wood would dirty up Thomas's top half as well. Always being a sucker for detail, I decided to fit Thomas with a proper crew, this being after the accident, of course. Them not being there is what caused the wreck, but shut up. I ended up having to cut the legs of both figures to get them to properly fit in the cab, being that Thomas happens to run high, but I'm happy with how they look now that they're actually fitted. Using black weathering powder, I would follow Thomas's coal bunker, adding a small amount of weathering. I would do the same on his tanks, whistle, and in other random areas, often to cover up any prior damage. Once I detailed his main body, and did my best to cover up the years of play, I sprayed Thomas with a matte clear enamel, and he was done. Though this Thomas does run, I don't really have much of an area set up at the moment to run my G-scale engines. I've also been back and forth with wanting to start a garden railway, but due to winter, that may be a little hard right about now. However, one way or another, I will get a proper setup for this guy to run on, and I can't wait to show you guys that. I know there's about a million different projects going on, but I felt it would be fun to step out of the comfort zone. I myself have never customized the G-scale Thomas engine up until now, and personally haven't seen much of it done, so it was definitely a blast getting to remodel and bring to life one of my favorite childhood episodes. I know he doesn't have a cannon or anything like that on him, but hopefully you guys still like my custom G-scale Thomas Comes to Breakfast model.